Hi, hello, how are you? Thanks for stopping by. Today we're just going to have a couple of handsome fellas talking intellectual about what's going on the weekend. This is the Working Perspectives Podcast Weekend Pop In. As always, I'm Matt Lavelle, accompanied by my editor and producer, Tom Byers. Today we're going to talk about some real things going down in Chinatown. Shake, are you ready, my man?
Let's do it. Let's rock and roll.
Let's rock the socks out of this place. All right, let's get started. Let's go. All right, shake diggity. So we have made it. We are here. We are about to experience part 4, the finale, the end of the Alex Lavelle experience. And I'll tell you what, parts 1 through 3 have been nothing but phantasmal. Honestly, part 3 last week, really, I thought was like one of our best work because of like the funny story we had, but then I think we had a really great discussion about when Alex came out, like his whole experience and like, him, the whole chameleon thing and everything like that he was talking about. I just thought great conversation, great stuff, and a great memory lane. I date it. It's a good memory lane we get here.
Yeah, it was great talking to Alex about this stuff. And obviously you and I have known Alex forever. And a really important part of this podcast, especially in these early stages where we have like low, we don't exactly have the Howard Stern size audience.
Sure.
But really, these are just great opportunities for us to talk to our buddies and like learn about their lives, because every single person we've had on, it has a connection to us in some way. Most of them are your friends or your acquaintances, or some of them are my friends. But I mean, you tell me, every single person we've had on, we walk away going, oh, there's this specific part of this person's life that I had no idea. Like, I didn't know that they were, that they were interested in this thing, or they went through this thing, or whatever, good or bad. And it, at the very least, it's just a great opportunity for us to learn about our friends, and then our lovely audience has to sit there and deal with it. So
very much. But I think our lovely audience is happy to deal with it. Honestly, I feel like we learn something new with every show. You know what I mean? Like there is like something new that we've learned pretty much every show we've had. And like, I like that, like it's just, we've expanded our horizons so much, and we haven't, like we're barely dipping our toe into this thing thus far, really. But honestly, learned so much and seen so many different things. And like you're saying, like life experiences that people have shared with us have been just eye-opening a lot of the times, and really cool. And to be fair, there's been so much funny shit. Like I listen to the show when I'm at the gym getting my pump in, not trying to brag, I've been doing it, no big deal. But at the gym getting like a pump in, and I'm like, in the middle of a set, and like I'm trying like not to laugh, like when we're talking about dumb shit, you know what I mean? Like just cracking up,
And that's kind of like our default, is at the very least, that like when we have a discussion together, we're going to crack some jokes. We're going to like keep it light and fun. And really like just the growing process for us has been like a pleasant surprise, really. And I got to be honest with, like, there are interviews that I'm super excited about that we get. Like, obviously interviewing Alex was really like high on my list because, just one of the best dudes we know. And he has lived in Chicago for like so long now, like over a decade, I guess, right? Or close to it. So it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, oh man, I really wanted to catch up and like learn about what's going on in his life. But then you have other people that come on that I don't even know. And I just know, like, you'll tell me beforehand what their profession is. And like, I'll try to think of general questions that for, if the person's a mechanic or a barber or whatever they are, I try to think like, hey, what did the general public want to know? And then you meet the person and you're like, oh, I don't know this guy from Sam or from Adam or whatever.
Yeah.
And they end up like becoming like my bud over the course of like an hour or two. And it's really cool because then by the end of it, it's like, oh, I got to say goodbye to this person now.
Yeah. And you're like invested. Yeah.
Yeah. And I hope that comes off like on the show. The finished product is, you know, for the most part, we have people on that one of us doesn't even know. And it's like an introduction. It's like, hey, I'm having a party at my house. Why don't you come over? And my friend, you know, so-and-so is going to be here. You'll meet him or her. And then by the end of the episode, whoever is unacquainted, it becomes like best buds. And I hope that the listener by the end of the episode feels like they're best buds with whoever the guest is. You know, like I hope that they have.
Agreed.
I mean, they should. I know that really good podcasts that I listen to, I always walk away and like want to learn more about whatever the subject was or the person. And usually it's like me bugging my wife, and I'll be like, hey, Jill, I just listened to this podcast. Here's a good example. I just listened to a podcast about the guy that was the founder of Yelp. Like, you know, Yelp, like the review service.
Of course.
I learned like his background, where he came from. You know, he like brushed shoulders with Elon Musk and a bunch of like really big guys in Silicon Valley. And then when it was over, I was like talking my wife's ear off about Yelp and how they decided to like make that product and that service. And inevitably she was like, can you please like just shut the hell up about Yelp for you know,
man,
because like I lived in that world. I lived in the Yelp world for like an hour when I did this podcast. So anyway, I hope that our podcast like invigorates people to like learn and just, and like you said, broaden our horizons or their horizons.
Dude, honestly, I do the same thing. Like, okay, say when we recorded like a couple weeks ago, right? And we had someone on who's I won't say too much about it because we're probably going to air it pretty soon. But the episode itself, the guy that we had on, he like he's a programmer, right? And like I'd asked like my wife, I was like, what would you want to ask this person? And she gave me a couple questions to ask, and like the answers I got were like fascinating. So it ended up being like I was able to like, oh man, can you believe this is what he said about those questions? And like, you know, just like that kind of stuff. And it was able to add to it. But the experience you get, and like there has been times where we've recorded and I've left and like, dude, did you know this? I had no idea that, you know, like I really like that. That's one of the fun things that we get with this show. Also,
go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say on the last Weekend Poppin', I brought up a fan of the show, Mr. Bowers, Jay Bowers, former guest of the show and friend of the show. It's his dad, Mr. Bowers. He's a master carpenter. We brought him up on the show on Jay's episode, and last week I gave him a shout out. Just let everybody know he has now been booked for the show. Yeah, buddy, we got him. That was a big get, my man. Big get. Also, like something too, like I want to get into that more. Like, okay, like I have an uncle, my dad's oldest brother, who like was always held in very high regard and like very respected, and he's like the oldest son of the family and like the patriarch and all that stuff, right? And he just found out that we had a show, and that's poor distribution on my part. But he just found out that we had a show, and he's listening to it, and I'd love for him to come on and be on too. So like honestly, I love the age gap we've had, because we've had someone on here who's, you know, in their like late 20s to we've had people on here in their mid 30s, people in their 40s, and then like, you know, I would love to get someone in their 60s and 70s, and I just would like to, you know, just pick their brain a little bit, and because there's so much knowledge to be had with this show. Like I was driving home yesterday from picking up my daughter from school, right? And I'm driving and I'm sitting at a stop sign and I'm looking at the street light I'm not a stop sign. I'm at a traffic light and I'm looking at the traffic light, and next to the traffic light is a street sign, right? The street sign is painted green and the letters are in white, right? And right away I'm like, where did the metal come from for that? Who cut that, right? Who painted that? Who hung that up there? Who put maintenance is that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, who named the fucking street? You know, like all of that's coming to my mind. And those are all jobs. And that's the kind of shit like I want to learn on this show, you know?
Absolutely.
Like just give shape to the world around us. And I think that's like a big thing that I think I hope that we've kind of done that thus far, and
Yeah,
we'll
yeah.
continue to do that.
Yeah, and not to give us too much credit, like I don't think we're like, changing the world in a extreme way or anything, but giving people a better understanding of the world around them is obviously like that's always a good thing, to better understand the world around you. And
Yes.
especially in these times, to sound like a commercial, in these trying times, in these troubling times,
Yeah.
things can feel very like the walls are caving in on you, like
Yeah.
people have a lot of stress, and a big part of it is people feel like they're stuck, like they can't.
Yeah.
The world is a big giant, these forces are massive, and I can't make any sort of heads or tails of it. And to understand the background of things that you had no idea how they worked before is a part of feeling like you have a little bit more control, like you'll hear the two interviews we've done in the past 2 weeks are in industries that you and I just don't know at all. But the two guests we had did a really good job explaining in like layman's terms, like, okay, this is the bottom line, and you've started asking our guests really good question. I know you did it on this past interview, is what do your customers want, and what do you give them? Like that's the bottom line is, in the market, there's a need for this, and we figured out that we can make it at a decent price and make a little bit of profit. And that's the bottom line. So, people, you're welcome for all the well-rounding that we're giving.
Also, too, like in my mind, like I want to be able to answer these questions like for my daughter when I know she's going to ask them, like, and for anybody else. It's just like, it's knowledge to have. I like having that kind of knowledge, like, and I'm not saying knowledge, but I'm like knowing those like kind of facts, and I think they're great, so
absolutely.
And then and then how about, so not to give too much away again, and we can probably cut this if we're rambling on a little bit, but last night we recorded an episode and it was fascinating, right? Like just how it works and how like an industry was created out of something we had no idea about. And this is a multi-million billion-dollar industry, and this is a job that like it takes like human instinct to be able to perform. And I was thought it was so cool, man.
Yeah, it was absolutely, it was very engrossing. I wanted to talk to our guest for like another 2 hours about that industry,
Yeah, that happens quite a bit. We always run out of time, it seems, huh, Shake? So, but let's keep this moving. So, like we said, Alex Lavelle parts 1 through 3 are available on all podcast platforms, YouTube. You guys know the fucking gimmick. And then Alex Lavelle part 4 is going to be released next week, and it'll be the end of the era, the end of the month of Alex will be next Tuesday on the Working Perspectives podcast. So finally, we'll be done with just Jabron, and we can actually figure out what he does for work, because with the 6-7 hours that we've recorded thus far, or whatever, or the I guess it's like 4 or 5 hours that we've recorded thus far, we have no idea what this bozo actually does for a living. So this will actually be pretty good. But okay, so let's keep it moving. So Shake, one thing we like to do for the people, for the dozens and dozens of podcast listeners that we have, is we like to recommend a little something for them to do and explore over the weekend. So, Shake, being that you are the smartest person in the room, what do you recommend for our fans for this weekend? What do you got, buddy?
Okay, this will be perhaps my strongest recommendation, my highest recommendation. I would like to recommend for the listeners out there to dive in to Stephen King short stories. Stephen King, he has, I don't know, like at least 10 books of short stories. And Stephen King is one of my favorite authors because he dives in.
Your favorite, right?
Yeah, I don't know. John Irving's up there. There's a couple people that are up there.
Fucking smarty, you fucking smart guy with your fucking authors that you like. You're fucking.
It's not though. Like Here's the thing, Stephen King, he writes like, he always admits that he writes pulp. And by that, I mean, or he means that he writes very, very like easy to listen or easy to read books.
Agreed.
He writes in like regular people's voices. He does not use big words. He thinks that like he would like cringe at the idea of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
he's trying to explain a story, right?
Yeah.
He's fucking using good words that we all fucking know over here. I'm not going to say something's fucking scatomatic, and I don't fucking even know what that means. You know what I mean?
His work is very unpretentious, and he always has his eye on entertaining the reader. That's all he cares about, is entertaining the reader. But he still covers like incredibly important like ideas and themes and stuff. So, but his books are incredibly long. Like if you pick up a Stephen King book that's 400 pages, that's like a short, Stephen King book.
Yeah.
So for people who might be intimidated by picking up a 500-page book, even though I would say you could read a 500-page Stephen King book in the time that it would take you to read a 200-page like Charles Dickens book or something. You know what I mean? Like it's just that easy to read, and you just in like an afternoon you can read
flying through it.
Yeah. So anyway, his short stories are a good way to get introduced and to learn about him and his concepts without having to like dive into a full book.
Quick question. The movie Stand By Me.
None of us could breathe. Somewhere under those bushes was the rest of Ray Brower. The train had knocked Ray Brower out of his keds, just like it had knocked the life out of his body.
Jesus.
The kid wasn't sick. The kid wasn't sleeping. The kid was dead.
We headed home, and although many thoughts raced through our minds, we barely spoke. We walked through the night and made it back to Castle Rock a little past 5 o'clock on Sunday morning, the day before Labor Day. We'd only been gone 2 days, but somehow the town seemed different, smaller. As time went on, we saw less and less of Teddy and Vern, until eventually they became just 2 more faces in the halls. It happens sometimes. Friends come in and out of your life like busboys in a restaurant.
That's one of his short stories, right? The Body.
Yeah.
Am I correct?
Yeah, it was called The Body. So that's a collection of short stories called Different Seasons. And Different Seasons has The Body, which became Stand By Me. It has Rita Hayworth and The Shawshank Redemption.
It always makes me laugh. Andy Dufresne, who crawled through a river of shit and came out clean on the other side. Andy Dufresne, headed for the Pacific.
Hadley's got him by the throat, right? And he says, I believe this boy's about to have himself an accident.
Those of us who knew him best talk about him often. I swear the stuff he pulled.
These friends of mine could use a couple of beers. And he got it. And he got it.
Sometimes it makes me sad, though, Andy being gone. I have to remind myself that some birds aren't meant to be caged. Their feathers are just too bright. And when they fly away, the part of you that knows it was a sin to lock them up does rejoice. But still, the place you live in is that much more drab and empty that they're gone. I guess I just miss my friend.
Which obviously is Shawshank Redemption.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Whoa! Hold up. That's a short story? The Shawshank was a shorty?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would say it's almost like a novella. So it's like, it's either 100 like or a close. It's like a quarter of a book, kind of.
So wait, real quick. So the actual name of it is Rita Hayworth in The Shawshank Redemption?
Rita Hayworth and The Shawshank Redemption, because the poster, the poster he throws the rocks through.
Yeah.
And I think,
of course, come on.
Yeah. And then the other one is Apt Pupil, which is like a lesser known story of his about, do you know what that is? It became a movie. It was a movie in the early 2000s. It's like a kid who finds out that his neighbor is a hiding Nazi, like an ex, Nazi guard or something. But the neighbor's like in his 80s and like, dying of cancer. And the kid finds out about it, and the neighbor's like scared that he's about to get, caught and probably put to death or whatever. But the kid ends up being like a creep and just wants to learn about the guy. Like the kid's like, he's like the antagonist in the book. And the last one's called the breathing method.
How many? So, okay, what's the breathing method about?
I honestly don't remember. I read this a while ago.
It's all right. Fucking our listeners would probably be surprised that you fucking know how to read. Yeah. I know they're surprised I know how to read. Yeah. But so the so what I was gonna ask is Stephen King, right? Mm-hmm. Has he written more like short stories and books that have been made into movies than anybody else?
It has to.
Like his
absolutely has
to.
Every single one of his books.
That's like a couple, like It, The Shining, The Shawshank, fucking Stand By Me, like all of that. And that's just a couple off the top of my head.
And especially now with Netflix, like Netflix has a deal with him. So like if you've seen on Netflix, there's like a movie called 1922. There's one called Gerald's Game. Like all these, there's so many.
Didn't he do 63 or something? 11/2/63, right? 1963, about the assassination of Kennedy. Right?
Oh, yeah, it's like and that's a massive book.
So good. Oh, yeah. And they made, and it was it's a series, right?
Yeah, James Franco.
James Franco's in it. Yeah. Dude, so good.
That's a huge book. Yeah. It's a really good story too, because it's like, obviously it has all the history in it and everything, but it's a really great like love story as well. And that's like the thing with Stephen King, is that he loves to like dance back and forth between, just like Stand By Me, it's a good old fashioned, like fun, just a buddy story, with a bunch of kids. And then all of a sudden it turns into this crazy dark, kids grasping with mortality and what your fate is in life and stuff. Anyway, people don't need me to like talk up Stephen King. They know he's great, but I would recommend, if anybody's actually going to do this, to buy The Bazaar of Bad Dreams is a really good collection of short stories, and Skeleton Crew is another one. But these short stories, like he has some that are only like 30 pages long, 15 pages long. Oh, and wow. The fun thing is like, if you're getting into reading, or if you have a reading habit, like a schedule you stick to, you can just like read one of these stories right before bed at night, and then it begins, it has a middle and it has an end, and then you're done. You don't have to like, some people don't like that. They don't like reading because they feel like, oh, well, if I don't finish the chapter, then I feel weird, like stopping halfway through. Like these are just nice and easy. They go down smooth. They're like light beer,
Yeah. Nice, man. Dude. And plus, dude, you can't beat the King. The King's the man.
No, he's definitely the best
author of our times, for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a better author. I mean, R.L. Stine, of course, way up there. But
I would say, like, pound for pound, I would say he is my favorite, just because of how much he's able to produce, and he never lets you down.
I know Grisham's good too. Who's the other guy you said?
John Irving is, but he's not he's not a prolific writer. He writes,
King's been writing since.
For any of you people who remember the movie Simon Birch, that was a John Irving movie, and the World According to Garp might be my favorite book of all time.
That's a great one. Great movie too. Robin Williams.
So there you go. That's my recommendation.
Nice. So I was interrupting you. What were you saying about Stephen King? You were saying something nice about he's like, one of the best authors of our time, and
just because like pound for pound, I think he's the best because it's incredible how much he puts out, but it's also incredible how high the quality is. Like even his lesser known books are so entertaining. Like there's one that came out a few years ago called Duma Key, and it's just this weird ass story about like a divorced guy that moves down to Florida by himself, and like he interacts with these paintings, and the paintings kind of come to life and like mess with them. And like that doesn't sound like, if I had to write that story, it would be the worst story of all time, you know? But Stephen King writing it is like you're locked in.
Yeah, he encapsulates you with all that, dude. He's got a gift. Like there's so much shit. Like how many, like I know for me at least, I had seen, and Shawshank had been out for years and I had no idea. Same thing with Stand By Me. No idea that was Stephen King. And like there's probably a bunch of things out there that are like that. You know what I mean? Like he's written so much. He's like, and to have that talent, that creativity is just bang it out. Like I wish freaking George R.R. Martin could fucking bang him out like that. Jesus Christ. That guy freaking can't freaking throw a book to save his fucking life over there.
Yeah. And then and the last thing I'll say about him is if people out there are into, you know, there's a whole group of people that I know that are into sort of like self-help books or motivational books or like books that like to make your life better or whatever. He has a book called On Writing that is, it's sort of like it's a very easy to read manual on like explaining his writing style and his like how he goes about writing, but it's very applicable to just like life in general. And it's very motivating. Like for you people out there that are looking to get a little bit more motivated into creative things, whether it's a book or maybe you want to make music or whatever it is. The book itself really is just him giving critiques on like what is good writing and what is bad writing, or movies or anything. Like it just teaches you how to have good taste and be honest with yourself and how to be a good critic, which is like really valuable. For example, like when we make this podcast, there are a lot of things, there's a lot of times when we have to have like hard conversations with each other. Like, hey, you know, this ended up sucking, or, you know, this is great, but this sucks. And that's what makes, you know, creative things actually worth consuming. So that's my spiel.
You know, we went into this knowing, and like, you have to, you know, you gotta eat shit and like the taste of it, kind of, you know what I mean? Where it's like, you gotta know it's not all going to be home runs. You know what I mean? Like you got to know, like, it's not all going to work, bro, but you just got to stick with it and just do your thing. And like, you know, something else will come up. It can't stop you from trying though. Right. Like having the creativity and like, you know, the will to be creative is very much a key part of it as well. But okay, dude, not gonna lie, you fucking kind of stole my thunder with your recommendation being fucking books. But that was my fucking gimmick over here. I'm fucking Natty fucking books over here, and you're stealing my goddamn fucking gimmick. But I was actually not gonna recommend a book this week. I was gonna recommend something else. Something near and dear to both of our hearts. So some of us that follow us on social media might know that a friend of ours and friend of the show and former guest of the show, the man, the myth, the Murph Meyer, he started his own podcast. When he did his episode, he was promoting his podcast, and it is finally here. Murph Meyer is self-medicated. And his first episode released the other day, and I think his second one might be releasing tomorrow. Ooh, don't quote me. But if you haven't checked it out, I would say definitely check it out. Honestly, I listened to it, and this podcast it's not for the light of heart. Like, go into it knowing like it's sad and it's very upsetting, and there's disclaimers and everything like that, but it's also very informative. And honestly, the episode I listened to, it was so good and so well done and so thought out. And honestly, I'm really proud of him. really, really proud of him for the work he's done.
And you've known him for a while,
what he's
right?
trying to do. I have, yeah, for a long time. Really great guy. And I'm just so proud of him and happy for him. And honestly, the show, I know it's only one episode in and he has like some trailers and stuff, but really, really good thus far. And he had his mom on the first week.
Yeah, I heard that clip. He put out like a little clip where his mom read his old report card about how he was seen by the teachers at his school.
Oh yeah, he's a little troublemaker. And a little troublemaker.
And it is like, I mean, he's like an incredibly funny person. So I assume, and that's like his whole thing is that he's super layered. Like he's very intense with his cause, which is he's a recovering addict, and he's all about like the harm reduction movement, which is like removing the stigma on drug abuse and especially like how the government and law enforcement treats drug abusers and how ineffective that is, you know, and he's all about changing the policies on that. So he's a very dedicated person, but also he's one of the like goofiest, craziest dudes you'll ever meet.
Total goof.
So it's like
a total freaking goof.
Yeah.
He's a total stoop. He's a stoop. But
did you see that he got written up in like a couple of really big publications? Was it not Forbes, but like some kind of giant national newspaper wrote like a story about him and about his podcast because he got that podcast. He got that podcast through like a grant, through like a government funded grant, which is really cool. Like he had
arts thing.
He pitched it and was in like, you know, a competition, and his podcast, the concept for his podcast won a bunch of money for him to like put towards making his podcast awesome. I look forward to tuning into that. I'm sure it'll be a worthwhile venture.
Also he like, and it's cool too, like even for us listening to it as like fellow potters or whatever you want to call us, right? Like he, you know, gives a shout out to his director and everything like that. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, God, like, cause his shit's like, ours is crisp, but his is really crisp too. And it's like the way they put it together, really, really cool, man. And really, really well done. And, you know, and it's, the message is great. And, you know, and honestly, it's just like, can't be happier for him and wish him nothing but the best. And can't wait to have him back on too, you know? So that'll be
fun. Yeah.
But yeah, so that's my recommendation. The Man, the Myth, the Murph Meyer. The podcast is called Murph Meyer is Self-Medicated. Episode 1A just released. Episode 1B, I believe, is going to be released, you know, sometime soon. So definitely check it out and you know, rate, review, and subscribe for him because he's our buddy. And for all of those listening, go into it knowing like they talk about some messed up shit and some tough shit. So if you don't want to listen to that, no problem. Just giving you a heads up on the way in. It's real stuff. They talk about real stuff, and it's, you know, it's some of it's pretty messed up. So there you go. But yeah, really, really good though. Really, really good. But yeah, so nice. So okay, so we've done our recommendation. So like we said, Alex Lavelle, the epic that is the month of Alex, March of Alex, the March of the Alexes, the March of the Penguins of Alex, whatever the hell you want to call it, Alex Madness, something, whatever, is finally coming to a close next week. Part 4 of the epic 4-part series, the Alex Lavelle Experience. Part 4 will be next week. Round off the Alex Lavelle Experience, and then we'll get back to, you know, someone other than Alex the following week. Promise.
Hey, Matt.
Yeah.
Before we move on with moving on from the Alex Experience, so you listened to the most recent episode, obviously, right? Since it's been published.
Yeah.
What did you think? What did you think of that Captain Planet clip? Do you know what I'm talking about?
God. Yes. So when they're at the HIV at the basketball game,
yes,
or whatever it was, or Jesus,
for you people out there,
Saturday morning cartoon.
Yeah, for you people out there that maybe are afraid to listen to the full episodes because maybe they're too long for your taste. In the show notes, you can see like minute by minute what each segment is. And we talk about Captain Planet on Memory Lane, and there's a clip from an episode where the episode is all about like reducing the stigma on HIV/AIDS. It was back in like the early 90s. And it is just a bizarre, man, like it is an incredible clip that was just wild that they put it into a child's show. So go and listen to that. Even if it's just for that little clip, go and listen to it. I promise you, it'll be the funniest thing you've heard all day.
Yeah. Also, if it is too long for you, the clip has been broken down on our YouTube channel to just the Memory Lane part, because we also talk about some other cool Memory Lane stuff. But yeah, the Captain Planet stuff in the Memory Lane is on that clip is on our YouTube channel under our Memory Lane playlist, or just under the videos playlist. But it's you're right. That the Saturday morning cartoons, and NPH playing the guest starring there.
And as Alex said in the episode, like we laugh about it, but actually like it's kind of awesome that the creators of that show like went out on a ledge and made something with a message like that. We'll let's, hey Marvel, you're up next. Let's see you put out a message like that.
When Thor and Loki come back, both having Corona and HIV, that's gonna be a hell of a move, let me tell you. But okay, so all right, well, this has been Shake. You good? We ready to roll?
I'm good, man. You got any plans this weekend you want to talk about, or keep them secret?
It's all one big secret. So okay, so this has been the Working Perspectives Podcast Weekend Poppin'. I'm Matt Lavelle. He's Tom Byers. You can find us on all podcast platforms, YouTube, all that gimmick. Working Perspectives Podcast, Instagram, Twitter, Working P-Pod, the whole spiel. But this has been the Working Perspectives Podcast Weekend Poppin'. So enjoy your weekend. Stick around for the ad read. All right, we're done. See ya.